Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. Here we're going through the Week 10 Sunday games, so let's get into the next preview. Getting into the next Sunday game, we have New England going to Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay is favored on the money line with a spread of 2.5 and a total point line of 48.5. I'll move these over to the averages so that we can compare them to our ranks, where we have New England, the best in the league at stopping the rushing game, and they have a pretty good passing rank as well as a pretty good scoring rank. They're also pretty good at stopping their opponents from scoring. They do lack at stopping their opponents from passing, and they're not so good at stopping tight ends, even though they do like to utilize their tight ends. For Tampa Bay, they're about average, a little bit more so across the board, with a scoring rank of 14, allowed scoring rank of 13, passing rank of 12, but an allowed passing rank of 26, so that's somewhere where New England could take advantage of them, a rushing rank of 24, an allowed rushing rank of 8, and they're the worst in the league at utilizing their tight ends, even though they're about average at stopping tight ends. Your quarterbacks in this game are Drake May and Baker Mayfield, with Drake May getting 21.1 average fantasy points per game, and Baker Mayfield averaging 17.6 fantasy points per game. Drake May has 4 interceptions this season, and 2 fumbles lost due to sacks. Baker Mayfield has 2 interceptions this season, and 1 fumble lost due to a sack. Now we'll just move over for their averages, as well as look at their carry share, where you have Drake May with 23.4% of the team's total carries, which is a pretty large percentage given that it's pretty well shared between about 3 people from New England right now. With Baker Mayfield, he gets a little smaller slice of the pie here, unfortunately cut off, but that's about the same size here maybe, so about 10 or 11% of the team's total carries. Getting into our running backs, you have the backups for both teams, because Ramondre Stevenson is still out, and Bucky Irvin is still listed as out. The next in line are Henderson and White, where Henderson averages 7.3 fantasy points per game, and White has been averaging about 10.7, with the only turnover coming from Henderson, with 1 rushing fumble. And then here's your averages, as well as their week by weeks if you need them. Just looking at the carry share, Henderson right now has a carry share of 26.6% of the team's total carries, which is creeping up to about the most, since Stevenson has still the most at 32.9% of the team's total carries. Over here with Rachaad White, he gets the largest share now with 39.9% of the team's total carries. That's beating out over here Bucky Irving with 36.8% since he's been out so much. And then there's a few others with Sean Tucker and Baker Mayfield as we saw. And then looking at the number 1 receivers, you have Stephon Diggs and Emeka Egbuka, where Diggs averages almost 12 fantasy points per game, and Egbuka averages about 15.4 fantasy points per game. With no turnovers, we'll switch right over to the averages. And then look at the percentages, with Diggs getting about 22.2% of the team's total receiving share. That is the largest out of anybody else. And Egbuka getting about 29.3% of the team's total receiving share, which also is larger than any other individual. For your number 2 receivers, both teams have their number 2 receivers hurt, with Kayshawn being out and Chris Godwin. So instead we'll look at Mac Hollins and Tez Johnson, where Mac Hollins averages 6.7 fantasy points per game, and Tez Johnson averages 6.9. With no turnovers, we'll look at the averages and see that Mac Hollins has about 9.5% of the team's total receiving yards on the team, and Tez Johnson a little larger percentage with maybe about 14 or 15% of the team's total receiving share. Finally, we have our tight ends with Hunter Henry and Cade Otton. Hunter Henry averaging almost 10 fantasy points per game, and Cade Otton averaging about 7.6. Once again, no turnovers between both of them, so we'll just go to the averages. But looking at the receiving share, Hunter Henry gets about 16% of the team's total receiving share, and over here with Cade Otton, he gets about 14.1% of the team's total receiving share. So this game seems like it could be a real close one, really depending on how it works out. If you have New England really passing the ball all over Tampa Bay, even though they are missing their number 2 receiver, Tampa Bay's not the best at stopping the passing game, and vice versa with Tampa Bay. It doesn't seem like there should be much of a rushing game since New England only has a rushing rank of 16. Again, with Stevenson hurt, going against a team that's 8th best at stopping the rush, and vice versa with Tampa Bay at 24, going against the best team in the league at stopping the rush with the Patriots. So it does seem like this should come down to a passing game, with the Pats also not having the best defense for passing. Right now this would lean with the Pats, with this scoring rank of 7 and this allowed scoring rank of 6, meaning that they're just going to be better at scoring overall and preventing Tampa Bay from scoring. But we'll see how it actually turns out. So that's all I have for this game today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.